You gonna go to the gym after?
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how long this runs. I don't want this to run longer than an hour, so I'll try to keep my points concise here. But if you're watching the recording or you're on this live with my man Adam, I appreciate you taking the time out of your Thursday to come watch this, because you guys could be doing anything right now. Could be cooking dinner, you could be at work, but you're spending it here learning about health and fitness stuff. And I think that's so powerful, because anybody that's willing to take an hour of their time to be able to just learn something that can implement, it tells me that type of person is an action taker, that type of person is serious. So the one salesy thing I'll say, because I'm sure if you're watching something like this, you're kind of like, what's the catch? Where's the pitch? The one salesy thing I'll say, and that's the most salesy thing I'll say on this whole thing, from there on out, it's straight value. Salesy thing I'll say is, yeah, I hope I give you guys so much value out of this that you do want to reach out. You want to ask me more about what I do. I figure people don't really pay me for information. They pay me for accountability. They pay me for support, guidance, access to me. So I have no problem treating you guys just like clients in terms of the information that I'm giving you. So if you guys take that of value, whether you share it with a friend, whether you reach out in 6 months, whether you ask me after this because you found it so valuable, like what I do and how I can help, I'll open up a time for people to ask about that. But I'm not here to like pitch anybody or force anybody into some hardcore commitment thing just because you attended the training. So I hope you guys get a lot of value out of it. And I'm just going to dive in and pull up my PowerPoint up here. Adam, let me know if you can see this, man. Can you see this we got here?
Yes, sir. Best kept secrets.
Best kept secrets. All right. So you may have been attracted by the title or whatever the case is. We're here to talk about the best kept secrets to ignite your metabolism back to where it was in your early 20s. So a couple things we're going to talk about here today. We're going to talk about the 7 deadly sins of health transformation after your 20s. All right. So I think there's a lot of things people get wrong in terms of misinformation and myths. So we're going to cover some myths in that section as well. We're going to talk about the biggest secret that a lot of people don't know when it comes to boosting your metabolism after your 20s. We're going to talk about I want you guys to get some practical stuff out of this, right? So we're going to talk about some key habits, the main needle movers that you're going to want to focus on if you do want to ignite your metabolism. And then lastly, I want to finish up with the exact nutrition framework that I teach my clients to be able to build muscle and lose fat. So the last 2 sections be very like actionable stuff. And I hope you guys get a lot of value out of that. And then Adam, you're on here with me live, so I'll be able to answer any questions you have at the end. And I'll stop every now and then for takeaways if you want to chime in or ask questions. Is that cool? Hope we dive in.
Yes, sir.
Okay, gotcha. So who is this for? It's for you if you feel like you've tried everything for your fitness goals. So I know, Adam, I know you're in the 40 and up health and fitness group. I talk to a lot of guys I work with, they're in their 30s and 40s, and they kind of have this mentality that, they can't get the body that they want because they're not in their 20s anymore. So we're going to talk about that today. It's for you if you kind of feel like that. If you told yourself that you can't get the body you want because you're not in your 20s and you tried everything for it and nothing seems to work, nothing seems to stick. People who want to get ahead of the so-called decline. Like, I don't know if you got family and friends or anybody watching this has people that are surrounded with, and they kind of tell themselves this story that it all goes downhill once you hit XYZ age. like drop a comment below if you're watching this, if that's the case. And I'm here to talk to people here to talk about how to help people who want to get ahead of that said decline, just want to get a head start. And then lastly, if you're somebody who's not a victim, they don't have that victim mentality, you have the work ethic, but maybe you just don't know what to do. You don't know where to focus your efforts to get the best results, and you just want to know what works. So that's who this is going to be for today. Why do I think this is important to learn? Adam, like I was saying in that group, I just don't think a lot of people are teaching it this way. I think a lot of people just there's a lot of misinformation out there, just stuff people heard and repeat to somebody. People are just pushing supplements and a lot of stuff that doesn't necessarily work. So just want to make this simple. I want to teach you guys the right information. I want to simplify it and make it something actionable that you can walk out of here and actually do something with. And then lastly, if you can change how you think about this process, that's how I define mindset, right? Thinking about the process the right way. If you could change how you think about this process, you can, have sustainable results that way. So a lot of it is just people getting in their own way in terms of their headspace, right? It's not always a strategy issue. So just diving into the 7 deadly sins of health habit transformation after your 20s. Number one thing, by the way, these 7 deadly sins, these are things I've just noticed with conversations I've had. You'll probably notice some of the stuff and similarities of people in that group, Adam, that we were talking about. Clients have all dealt with some of this stuff. So this is stuff that's going to hold people back from stepping into the best version of themselves in terms of health habit transformation or getting the body that they want. Number one would definitely be thinking you're an anomaly. And this is kind of like the woe is me, nothing works for me type of mentality. And I think it's interesting because there's no new fundamentals, like regardless of age. Adam, I'm not sure how old you are, and I'm not sure how old anyone else is watching this recording, but the same things that work for me in terms of principles, in terms of fundamentals, are going to be the same things that work for you. There's no new fundamentals. Like all the basics are going to be the basics. Of course, there's going to be nuance in terms of how we apply it, but in terms of the laws and the principles and how health and fitness works, it's going to work regardless of age. So sometimes just understanding that can kind of help people get rid of that story that, oh, because I'm this age, I can't get the body that I want, or, oh, my metabolism slowed down, there's nothing I can do about it, I'm helpless about it. So if anything, I think this puts us in the driver's seat, because when we're thinking, even if your metabolism does slow down a bit when you hit a certain age, it doesn't serve us to think that way. It doesn't serve us to think that none of the principles like apply to us. If we can just put ourselves in the driver's seat and be able to control our situation as best as we can, get the best body we can, that's always a better place to be. And that goes for anything. So it's not always going to come down to genetics. It's more so lifestyle factors. And I'll get into that in a little bit. Deadly sin number 2, and I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, would be limiting beliefs and like listening to others who have limiting beliefs and listening to other people's stories. So like I was saying before, maybe you're telling yourself some type of story around metabolism. Like you have no evidence of it, but you're telling yourself, oh, my metabolism slowed down when I hit 30. And maybe you catch yourself telling people things like and not realizing it. When I talk to people, they tell me this sometimes. Like I'm talking to somebody on the phone, they're like, yeah, I want a 6-pack, or I'd be happy to lose this much weight, or I'd be happy to look this way. But, I know it's harder when you're not in your 20s anymore. And they kind of just have this narrative that they painted. And it could be for a bunch of reasons. It could be because they think that's what they've experienced, because their lifestyle changed. It could be because their coworkers are complaining about it. It could be because family and friends kind of put that in their head. It could be fitness marketing in terms of like supplements and all these different diets and stuff, kind of marketing it as if you're a victim that needs to be saved by some type of product. I think they kind of want you to think that so that you can, oh, let me buy this magic pill to improve my metabolism. So not talking about any of that stuff. I'm here to talk about what actually works, of course. And without realizing that more of this is going to be about your lifestyle factors than about your genetics, like I said before. But people think their metabolism slowed down because they got older. And it's mainly because, look, man, I'm not saying for you, Adam, I know you go to the gym pretty consistently. We talk about that, but just in general, a lot of people, they stop going to the gym. Their eating habits have stayed the same and they're not as active as they were before. Maybe they're stressed and they have kids, a wife, a job, things that demand their attention and their stress and their focus. And maybe they're not sleeping as much. So it's not necessarily that your genetics are keeping you from getting the body you want. It could be just your lifestyle factors, but you're thinking that, oh, it must be because I'm getting older because you're listening to everybody around you. You know what I mean? So meet Chip. This is one of my guys I've worked with for the past couple of years. He's actually doing his own thing now because I just don't think he needs my help anymore. So he's a perfect example of like these two things. When he came to me at 52 years old with no experience with his health and fitness. I mean, I don't think he had stepped in the gym before. Like it was just something he didn't value. And it was one of those things where, he got busy with the wife and the kids and work. He was building his career. It just wasn't something that was a priority for him in his 20s and 30s and 40s. And, he had a real estate career and all this stuff. And it got to a point in his, he had to deal with the transition in terms of his family. And he was kind of at a crossroads, like, man, I think I need to start prioritizing my health because it's going to give me a sense of self-control. It's going to give me a sense of, this is going to help me with my mental state. So he wasn't even doing it for the body necessarily. But when it came to discussing his goals in the beginning, he didn't even think it was possible for him to get a 6-pack. Like he didn't think that was possible because he figured, I haven't worked out in years. I'm 53, or I'm 52. There's no way I could get the body I want. But as he started to see evidence of the principles that we're going to talk about work, as he started losing weight, he started to realize that metabolism wasn't just dependent on age solely. He was open to putting in the right work. He was coachable. He did the work. And a year and a half later at 53, he's got abs here. You know what I mean? So, but it started with him maybe thinking about how some people are going to be watching this recording thinking like, you know, I have these stories that I'm telling myself and I'm not sure I can get the body that I want at said age. Because if he's 53 with no experience with his health and fitness up to this point, if he can do it, I know anybody can, if they just are willing to learn and open themselves to the right principles and apply those things consistently. Number 3, waiting until life slows down to take this seriously. So that's going to be a third deadly sin. I think because of those first 2 points, like thinking you're an anomaly, having these stories, like thinking nothing works for you, it becomes easier to push it off because it doesn't feel compelling to take action. Like maybe, you know, the holidays are coming up, Adam. I mean, I don't know if you've ever told yourself like, you know, maybe I'll get to it January 1, right? Or like, you know, I'm having a busy quarter at work. Maybe I should get back to it then, or maybe I should put this on the back burner. And I think when people have that mentality, it just becomes a cycle of procrastination and something always gets in the way. Like we convince ourselves that we'll be able to prioritize our health more, or prioritize this other thing more when life slows down. But when it does slow down, we find something else to fill our time because we've established up front that it wasn't a priority. So it's never too late. And I say it for this group specifically because it's never too late to make the right changes, but it certainly doesn't get easier the longer you wait, right? Like if let's say we have a goal of losing 20 pounds. Well, if we decided we're not going to start until after the holidays and we're just going to mess around, chances are we may not stay in the same boat and maintain, we may gain another 5 pounds. So now that 20 pounds we wanted to lose turns into 25 pounds by the New Year's, if that makes sense. And then sometimes this can lead to not getting started because you think you're behind. Like, you know, I didn't have the body I wanted in my 20s. So 15 years later, it's pointless. Why am I investing all this time into this thing that's not going to work? So just understand without realizing that you can turn it around pretty quickly. I mean, in Chip's situation, he had 30 years of his adulthood where he hadn't taken this seriously, but you know, he solved this problem for good in like 2 years. And I know 2 years sounds like a long time to get the body you want, but when you really compare it to the grand scheme of things, 2 years isn't that much time if you're just willing to take that consistent action. So I'll leave you on that. Like, what if I told you that if you took this seriously for a year and if you just executed the principles consistently, you could be in a completely different spot in a year. You know, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but it can happen. And I think once people like open themselves up to that, you know, they start to realize what's possible and they become more willing to do the work. So I know I'm talking a lot, Adam. I'll stop there. Like, do you have any takeaways from the first 3 points there? Anything that hit home with you, maybe made you think a little bit differently, or is this all stuff that you were kind of already aware of? No judgment either way.
No, I'm a big procrastinator. I always said I'd get around to it. Next thing you know, I'm 15 years in the same job and never getting around to it till recently.
Mm-hmm. I hear you, man. Is that how you feel right now, man?
No, we're coming around, man. Working for myself is much easier than it was working for somebody else.
Oh, you mean like with your job? You just mean like work in general, like career wise? Yeah, for sure. And sometimes it's just that fear to take the leap, right? Like you're working for somebody else's security, pays the bills. Maybe you get a little bit complacent in what you're doing. Like I've been there. So then you're like, I don't know, if you have a family that you got to support, it's not always easy to want to take the leap and not know if running your own business is going to work out. So yeah, I could see how 15 years of like that could lead to not taking the leap until whenever, right? So yeah, I hear you, man. There's always, I can do it tomorrow, and tomorrow turns into 15 years. And I think it's the same thing with people's health, man. I appreciate the share. Anything else hit home for you, or anything else resonate with you? Any questions about anything we've covered so far?
No questions.
Yeah. All right. Sound good. Point number 4 would be, let's say that after we establish the first 3 points, maybe you're like, okay, getting the body I want is possible at 45 or 50, whatever age I am. But when I do get into my health and fitness journey, maybe I'm focusing on the wrong things. So I don't need to paint these as if they're like inherently bad, but I think a lot of people who are busy, let's say you only have 1 or 2 hours a day to dedicate to this area of your life, maybe less. A lot of things it's deceptive, because a lot of things that are healthy or sound healthy, they sound like good ideas, and they are, but they're not the best ideas for what would get us the most results in shortest amount of time, if that makes sense. Like people they put the cart before the horse, and they're focused on the wrong thing at the wrong time. And because of that, they're not focused on the needle movers that would actually get them to their goals. And because of that, when they start doing these things, it can lead them to feeling like, oh, nothing works for me. And I tried that supplement. I tried 6 meals a day. I tried fasted cardio. None of these things worked for me, because that's what I heard is going to boost my metabolism. None of those things worked for me. So that means, it's all is lost, right? But in actuality, you just weren't focused on the right things at the right time to actually change your situation around. So I think that's a big one. Number 4, focusing on the wrong things. Number 5, under eating, man. Adam, I don't know if you can relate to this, but I know a lot of guys I talk to, yeah, they kind of go on the starvation diet, right? Like you've heard eat less, move more, which is true to an extent, but that's definitely something that we can overdo. And then you have nowhere to go but up. Like, for example, if I'm eating 2,000 calories a day and then I cut it to 1,000, yeah, I'm going to lose weight, but at a certain point, my progress is going to stall. Your metabolism is going to adapt to what you're doing over time, and then you're going to have nowhere to go but up. And then you start gaining weight again, right? So kind of jumping ahead on the nutrition here, but if you want to optimize your metabolism for fat loss, you definitely want to eat in a caloric deficit, but you want to eat in a nice optimal range. You don't want to eat too much, but you don't want to eat too little as well, because that's how we're going to get the best results here. And I'll talk a little bit more about this later. Number 6.
Well, I learned on that one, man, on 5, that's what I was doing. I wasn't eating lunch. I was fasting all morning until dinner. I wasn't losing no weight. Now that I picked up a small breakfast, small lunch, and a big dinner, I'm shedding pounds.
Yeah, exactly. And Adam, I don't know if you can relate to this, but sometimes I talk to people and they'll undereat, right? And they're, maybe you're working busy day and you skip breakfast and you don't eat all day. You're just caught up in your day to day. And then when you do sit down to eat dinner, maybe you overeat. Maybe it's like, I'm eating unhealthier foods because decision fatigue, right? I don't want to think about cooking dinner. Maybe I'm going to order a pizza or something like that. I've seen those cases where somebody's so good all day from not eating, but then they cancel out said results with just overeating at night. Like, is that something you can relate to or not?
Not typically.
Yeah, much better with it now.
Even if I starve during the day, I typically eat pretty healthy at night. But then again, I don't have to really worry about my calorie deficit because on the daily, I'm walking 9 miles. I'm burning thousands of calories.
What, for work? Just like very active?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha, man. Yeah. Yeah. But I guess you could see, like, when you stopped under eating, ironically, you started losing weight. So I think it's like a counterintuitive thing that, especially my type A guys, they tend to think like more of a good thing is always a good thing. It's like, yeah, eat less, move more is true, but we don't want to overdo that for sure. Number 6 will be being afraid to lift weights. And I think a lot of lifting gets a bad rep. Like, I'll use Chip for an example. I had him deadlifting when I was working with him, and nothing crazy, man. We're not going super heavy, but I think he had somebody come up to him at the gym and say that he shouldn't be doing that because of his age. When in actuality, strength training is one of the best things that you can do for mobility. It's one of the best things you can do for your bones. And it's one of the best things you can do for your muscles, especially as you're getting older, right? So it's not that the lift itself is bad, it's that there's bad execution. And a lot of times people are jaded to certain movements because maybe they got hurt deadlifting because they were doing it wrong. So now they're projecting onto everyone else that, oh, you shouldn't do deadlifts, they're bad. Or you shouldn't do squats, you should do this instead, right? But just in general, I mean, the premise of like being afraid to lift weights and kind of only sticking to the cardio section because that's what you heard you might have needed to do, right? And even when it comes to fat loss or weight loss goals, sometimes people associate lifting weights and doing those things with bulking up. And they associate cardio and like HIIT training and spin classes and all that stuff with weight loss. And that's not necessarily true. We can incorporate both for both types of goals, fat loss or muscle gain. So I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the strategy stuff as well. And then lastly, I hear a lot of like, I don't want to look like a bodybuilder, so like I'm not going to lift weights. And man, it takes a lot of intention to look like a bodybuilder. So it's not something we're going to do by accident. If we're lifting weights, we're not going to look like a bodybuilder unless we want to, you know what I mean? So there's no need to be afraid of lifting weights. It's something that's going to help us in terms of our metabolism. And lastly, not setting proper goals or expectations. Like, I think sometimes people want to figure this out in 90 days. They want to hop on the keto diet or the next big thing and solve their problem. Okay, don't have to worry about it anymore. But this is a thing that's going to be an ongoing target. And if you guys want a sustainable journey, you want this to be a lifestyle, you want it to be part of who you are at some point, it's always a work in progress. It gets easier as you go sometimes, but saying I need to get in the gym instead of, or having an unrealistic timeline rather, and then having like really vague goals, like, I just want to be healthy, or I just want to get back in the gym. It's another thing. Instead of setting a clear, tangible goal, like, okay, I want to be under 20% body fat by my next doctor's appointment, or I want my blood levels to be this, or I want to lose 20 pounds before March, or I want to put on 5 pounds of muscle by this date, right? Like something as simple as setting a tangible goal can go a long way in terms of decision making moving forward. And then, of course, not giving yourself grace to mess up, right? Like people have these expectations that because they commit to something, because they're doing 75 hard or keto, that they're not going to have any days where they're going to mess up. And yeah, I'd say that's not the case. Even with guys I work with, they mess up from time to time. It's not about not messing up. It's about how fast we can get back on track when we inevitably do. So got to be willing to give yourself grace and, go from there. Just from that first section, any other takeaways, Adam, before we dive in?
I felt it pretty good.
Yeah, awesome. So here's what you need to focus. So that was like all the mistakes people make. That's the stuff people, need to fix, like mindset wise. But here's what you actually need to do to focus on your metabolism. First things first, we need to set proper expectations. So when I look at a permanent health transformation, like getting to the point where it's just second nature, it's not something, it's sustainable, you know how to navigate any situation, you're confident, you're just a brand new person. I think it happens in 3 stages. So stage 1 is going to be habits, right? We're going to build habits. That's going to get you results. So that can take anywhere from 1 to 6 months. And I define habits as doing something until you get it right. Like maybe you're going to the gym for the first time in a while. You're learning how to do the exercises. You're learning how to squat. You're learning how to use machines. You're learning how to eat properly. You're learning how to make decisions at restaurants, the whole 9 there. You're building the right habits, and that's going to get you results. But I think the problem is people stop there. They say, oh, I've built my habits, I'm good. And then they backslide, or they have a lapse in judgment, and they get a little cocky about it, and they think, I got this. And then next thing you know, it's 2 weeks of them not being in the gym, and 2 weeks turns to 2 months. And now they're back where they started. So we got to keep our foot on the gas at that point, set these next level goals, work towards the next thing. And that's where I say lifestyle comes into play. I look at lifestyle like developing routines. Now you have routines for when you go to the gym. Like you have routines for, okay, when I go out to eat, I usually do this. Now you have your go-to select restaurants that kind of fit with your plan. I say that can take up to a year. And the reason I say that is because have we truly been tested if we haven't gone through a full year of sustainable eating, sustainable workouts, and a health journey? Holidays are going to come around every year. We might as well learn how to deal with them. Summer's going to come around. Vacations are going to come around. Have we really been tested that this is a lifestyle unless we've learned to deal with those situations? So I look at lifestyle as doing something until you can't get it wrong. So a little bit different from habits. Habits is doing something until you get it right. Lifestyle is like, man, I've done this so many times, I can't mess it up. I've looked at the same plate of food so many times, or I've waited out, or I've gone to this restaurant so many times and had so many opportunities to learn how to eat correctly at restaurants for my goals. I can't mess it up at this point. I've done it so many times, right? You just gotten the reps in. And then lastly is identity. Now, this is the end goal for most people, right? Like just wanting this to be so sustainable, doing it, it's not something they have to think about anymore. Like maybe there's a time in your life where you don't want to go to the gym, but you do it anyway because it's just what we do. I've been doing this so long, it feels weird that I'm not going to the gym kind of thing. So this is rituals, and something that could take up to 3 years. Oh, somebody's hopping in here. And I look at identity as doing something until it becomes a part of who you are. So cool there, Adam. Makes sense, bro? And I'll greet Josh as he comes on. And so setting proper expectations, the reason I say all that, Adam, is because setting proper expectations just with the journey as a whole is super important. Like if we think this is going to be a 2-month fix or a 1-month fix, or like, shoot, sometimes not even a year. Like sometimes it takes longer than that to see like a sustainable health journey. Then, we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. So I always say like setting the frame, setting the tone, setting proper expectations. That way you're not going to be disappointed when things don't go your way sometimes. All right. Joshua, I don't know if you can hear me, man, but I'm just saying what's up to you, bro. Happy to have you on the training. Again, we're talking about what we need to do to ignite our metabolism. So first, I think we need to understand what actually goes into our metabolism. Because I think a lot of people get this part wrong. People think, oh, because I'm said age, I'm 30, I'm 40, everything's slowing down. True to an extent, right? There is going to be some slowing down in metabolism, but it's not the biggest part like people think it is. If you guys look at this, if you guys look at this chart here, look at this. So 100% here, right? 60% of your metabolism is determined by your basal metabolic rate. And all basal metabolic rate means is the amount of calories that your body burns at rest. So it's determined by a couple different factors, genetics, age, muscle mass, all this stuff. But that's just like how many calories I burn just sitting here. Like if I did absolutely nothing today, I would burn 1,800 calories, for example. And that's without doing any exercise. That's without doing anything else. And that really that's the majority of it. Majority of it comes from that. Then you have exercise, right? It's funny because people over prioritize exercise. Like, oh, I need to get on the cardio machine and burn this many calories. That's only 12% of your metabolism, your activity level. NEAT is just like steps. Like it's another form of activity, right? But it's just like you're fidgeting in your chair. That's going to burn calories, like little small stuff, not so much as being active with like a full blown workout, but like walking to the grocery store, walking up the stairs, like how many steps you get on a daily basis, that's going to play a part. And then lastly is thermic effect of food. And it does like affect your metabolism, and it does burn calories when you eat food, right? So very small part of it, but all these things considered, that's what makes up the 100%. Now, because we know that BMR, basal metabolic rate, that's the biggest, that's the 60%. Why don't we focus all of our attention there? Why don't we, instead of trying to make this bigger than it is, exercise is only about 12%. Why am I spending so much time killing myself in the gym when it's not going to get me a big return on my time investment? Why don't I focus on the biggest factor? Let me focus on the low hanging fruit here. And that's going to be basal metabolic rate. So that's why, just to set this up, the biggest secret to boosting your metabolism after 40 that a lot of people don't know is building muscle and doing things that support muscle growth. People think it's about eating 6 meals a day, doing fasted cardio, fasting during the day, changing their meal timing around. And, those are very small things, but the biggest thing we can do, the best thing that we can do for our metabolism is to just build more muscle, because if you have more muscle mass in your frame, you're going to have more lean mass, and that's just going to give you a higher metabolic rate. That's one of the biggest factors of your basal metabolic rate, like I said. So, man, you can go from when you're doing a lot of strength training, you're eating enough protein, you're doing things that support muscle growth, your body can go from burning 1,500 calories at rest to 2,000 calories at rest. And I think that's so interesting because it doesn't require you to do any extra work after the fact. It's just about the investment of actually trying to put on the muscle actively year after year. So it's like, if you guys could just still eat more food and still be able to lose weight, that's something you guys have control over. And I just think it's cool because a lot of people don't necessarily know that. It's a long game. It's definitely something that takes some time, like building muscle and just investing in that type of process. It's the long way, but it's the best way to go, because I also know when people are trying to lose weight or they have a fat loss goal and they have to cut their calories so low, I know sometimes people's biggest fear, and clients deal with this as well, is, I don't want to have to eat this way forever. I don't want to have to eat such low calories just to maintain this body weight. And then they put the weight back on. But if we're focused on building muscle in the process, then we will be able to eat more food in the future and be able to burn more calories at rest. And we'll be able to maintain that body weight and look even better, look even stronger, or feel even stronger rather, while eating more food to maintain the body we want. So number one secret is definitely building muscle, something we need to place most of our focus on. Now, when it comes to that, the physical habits, if you did these things every day, you move closer to your goals. Now, we just talked about muscle building being like the main thing. So because of that, we want to do things that are conducive to muscle growth. And when it comes to the movement, we want to prioritize a lot of strength training or resistance training. Now, I like to think of strength training like a deposit, because yes, strength training is going to burn some calories, right? Let's say you go to the gym for a half hour and you're doing some bench press and all this stuff. Let's say you burn 150 calories. Cool. But it's more to it than that, because not only are you burning calories in the moment, but you're burning calories in the future, because each workout is a deposit to you putting on muscle in the future. Because like I said, the more muscle mass you have on your frame, the more calories and energy that your body requires to function and stay at that weight. So each strength training session, each resistance training session is not only helping you now, but it's helping you in the future as well. Whereas cardio, you're only burning the calories in the moment. If you do 150 calories worth of cardio, you're only burning that now. It's not helping you in the future. I mean, it helps you with your health, but it's not going to help you from a metabolism standpoint in the future. And then, so for that reason, like when I usually program for clients, I'll prioritize strength training because we understand that. And the steps in the cardio, that's more supplementary. So maybe sometimes people have that formula flip. They're prioritizing HIIT classes and sweating. Like sometimes people need to feel like they're sweating a lot to feel like they did something and makes them feel productive, but that's not what we need to prioritize for improving our metabolism here. So other way around for my guys, man, it's not necessarily about putting all the cardio first. Like you can do that if you want, but it's just not going to be the most effective way to get to these goals. Emphasize the strength training first, and then cardio and steps is supplementary to that. So that's the movement aspect. Of course, we want to drink enough water, right? That was what I was saying. In terms of nutrition, we want to focus on a calorie deficit and make the small adjustments over time. So Adam, like you were saying earlier, you were under eating. So let's say 2,000 calories is your number to lose weight. Like that's how many calories your body needs to lose a pound a week or whatever the goal is, right? If that stopped working, we don't want to just cut that in half. Like if your body, your metabolism eventually adapted to that 2,000 calories and it stopped working, we wouldn't want to cut that in half. We wouldn't want to go to 1,000. We want to take a small adjustment. We want to go to like 1,800 or 1,900, like 100, 200 calories. You see how small of an adjustment it is? And that's what's going to keep your metabolism intact, because your metabolism is like a thermostat. It's not something, it's something that's always going to adjust to what you're doing. So if you're raising your calories, it's eventually going to speed up and catch up. If you're lowering your calories, same thing. And if you take too big of a jump, you're going to run out of breathing room, and then you're not going to have anywhere to go but up. So if we take small adjustments, we're getting the benefits of actually losing the weight at the right rate without losing muscle. And it gives us room to progress over time when your metabolism eventually adapts. So that's the thing that comes up for guys. Like sometimes they think, oh, what I'm doing isn't working because, now you're not losing weight anymore, when in actuality, oh, you just need to make a small adjustment. Just eat a little bit less, one less serving of rice, and that'll probably do it. And you'll be fine. It doesn't have to be this drastic black and white thing. It's just something with a different approach we can take there. The other part of nutrition that we want to focus on is high protein. And the reason for that is because it's going to help you build more muscle, right? Real simple there. In terms of recovery, sleeping as close to 8 hours as we can, and then managing your stress, because both of those factors are going to go into how much muscle we can build. So I'll stop there again. Any takeaways from you guys before I head into the last section? Anything we learned about like muscle building or metabolism there? Adam, Joshua? Y'all still with me?
I'm here.
Okay. Any questions, takeaways there for that section?
Not really.
Okay. I'm getting into this last section here. Get into the nutrition framework here. Now, this is the nutrition framework I teach my clients to like be able to eat the things that they like in moderation and still eat in a way that serves them for their goals. So rather than tell people what to eat, I'd rather give you a framework to think with so that you can answer a lot of your own questions in terms of nutrition. So let me stop sharing this, bring up the whiteboard for you. So y'all see this whiteboard? Think of sharing. So I don't know if when you guys were in school, if you guys had a food pyramid. I remember when I was in school, we had, I think like kindergarten, first grade, it was like carbs are at the bottom. You had fruit and vegetables here. You had protein, meats and poultry up here, dairy or something. And then at the top, it was like oils, right? So when it comes to body composition, we're going to follow a different one. So we got 3 levels here. We got when we eat, what we eat, how much we eat. So I'll just go through these 3 levels real quick. So the reason I bring this up, guys, is because I think a lot of people put the cart before the horse when it comes to their nutrition. Like, how should I be eating to improve my metabolism? How should I be eating to put on muscle and lose fat? Well, it really depends. But one thing I notice a lot of guys do is they'll do these things out of order and compromise on the most important part because, like I said before, they're just worried about the wrong thing. Like people will ask me questions like, what should my post-workout meal look like? Or is protein bad or is that good? Should I be eating 6 meals a day or 3? Should I skip breakfast or do, stop eating carbs after 6? Like, that all these like questions they have, and that's like a level 3 question. So I'll just go through these real quick. So the most important factor of improving your metabolism and building muscle, losing fat, whatever the goal is there, is going to be how much we eat. And that's just coming down to calories, right? Calories in, calories out. As I've established before, if the goal is fat loss, for example, we want to eat in a caloric deficit, but we don't want to be in so far of a deficit that now we're hitting a wall all the time. And even on the other end of the spectrum, it doesn't matter what diet you're on. Like, sometimes people think they're doing the right thing because they're eating paleo, they're doing clean eating, they're doing keto, they're eating carnivore now is blowing up, right? Like, all these diets and things that sound healthy and sound good at paper, but because they're eating too much, that's why their metabolism isn't improving, or that's why they're not losing weight or losing fat, whatever the case is. And they think the problem is their metabolism, when in actuality is, oh, you're just eating too much and you don't realize it. So one of the tools I help one of the tools I get my people to do is to track their food with an app called MyFitnessPal. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of that, but that can help us become aware of our eating habits so we can change them in the future. So number 1 is going to be how much we eat in terms of calories, because that's what's going to determine whether or not we gain or lose weight or maintain weight in the middle. Number 2 would be what we eat. And when I'm talking about what we eat, I mean the ratios of the types of foods we're eating, how much protein we're eating, the macronutrient balance there, and just the quality of the foods that we're eating. Like, are we eating a bunch of processed foods? Or are we eating whole foods and like eating healthier? Right. So sometimes, like, let's say 2,000 calories is that number for somebody to lose weight. You could eat 2,000 calories of ice cream and probably lose weight, but the type of tissue that you're losing is not what we want. And that's not going to help us there. Like, you're probably feeling like shit. Your energy is going to be low, and you're going to lose muscle along with the fat instead of just losing the fat, if that's your goal. Right. So I think what we eat becomes important along with number 1, but it doesn't outweigh number 1 all the time in terms of those goals. So we got to make sure that we're focusing on those 2. Lastly is number 3. Surprisingly, this is one that's not super important to a lot of people. Like, I would say it's definitely important to high level athletes. It's definitely important to bodybuilders, lifters, people who need to optimize performance. So I look at number 3 as like the icing on the cake. Like, let's say number 1 and 2 get you 90% of your goals. Number 3 might get you that last 10, might get you over the hill, but it's not something that we need to place a ton of focus on there. So I usually tell people to just eat to their schedule. Like, who cares when you're eating? As long as you're following number 1 and 2, you're better off than you were before. And that's going to get you most of the results. And when I say what we eat, I mean, in terms of the frequency, like how many meals we're eating a day. Is it 3 versus 6 versus 1 or whatever? Or the timing. Okay, are we getting a nice a nice pre-workout meal versus a post-workout meal? Am I stopping when I'm eating at a certain point? Like, am I optimizing my windows for protein and carbs and all this stuff? But again, I think a lot of people over prioritize that instead of number 1. So they'll worry about the 6 meals a day at the expense of number 1 and number 2 in terms of how much they're eating. So that's the hierarchy I teach guys and the framework that I teach them. And the goal is to, hopefully that helps you guys answer a lot of your own questions that you might have. Like, once you know what's important at the right time, it can answer a lot of your own questions in terms of nutrition. Like, should I even be focused on this now? Like, maybe you see an article or you see a video and somebody's saying, this is a bad time to eat your food, or this is the optimal eating window. And then you see where you are on the journey and you're like, man, I should just focus on number 1. I don't even need to pay this any mind. Number 3, I don't have to worry about that for a long time. So hopefully that just kind of alleviates the stress, simplifies it, and gets you guys thinking the same way, or thinking the right way about the process. So there we go. Cut it there. Yeah, I actually ran through all that pretty quick. Sorry to be so talkative on here, man. I feel like I'm talking at you guys a little bit. But let's just wrap up with some takeaways, man, or questions about any of this stuff. Like, Joshua, I know you hopped on a little late. Hope you had some value and some takeaways there. Adam, I'd love to hear from you as well, man. Any big takeaways or questions that you have about this stuff?
All my questions will be asked in private message, sir.
All right. Yeah, I know you want to talk to see if I can help. So that's fine. Just curious. Other than that, you have any big like takeaways from the training at all? Like, anything maybe you're thinking differently about? I know you're doing your own thing in terms of a health and fitness journey. You're working with a trainer. You're eating right, it sounds like. But I don't know, anything you're thinking differently about or not? If not, it's fine, bro.
I think I'm gonna process a little bit. Now, like I said, I'll ask my questions on the between you and I. That's not being recorded.
Oh yeah. No, I got you. Totally understand that. What about you, Joshua? I know you hopped on a little bit late. Did you have any questions or takeaways about anything we covered? And I'll send you the recording as well, in case you just want to go back and look at some stuff we covered in the beginning. We talked a lot about mistakes that people make typically when trying to improve their metabolism. I don't even know if you can hear me, bro, but if not, just let me know, man. If not, we'll wrap it up, man. I'm not gonna hold y'all. I appreciate you guys hopping on. Let me know if you have any takeaways below. And anybody who's watching recording, just message me if any takeaways, any questions you guys have. I'll get this out to everybody who said they wanted to hop on but got busy with work or anything like that. So once again, I appreciate you guys hopping on. Let me know if you found it valuable, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks for your time, Dallas.